Hi, on behalf of the board of the Senior Housing and Healthcare Association, I'm welcoming you to this event on emerging markets. And we will give an introductory keynote on the topic, and also we will emphasize the relevance of this great association. I'm happy to give an introductory keynote with my colleague Martin Zarnocki on the topic. So regarding the SHA, we are really driving the senior housing and healthcare sector forward. And I'm really proud to emphasize our purpose, because we're trying to promote and also drive the maturity of the markets. So not only the European markets, but also the emerging markets, because we're helping actually searching for answers for growing demand on dementia or senior living, but also struggling with the post-COVID changes, because COVID, of course, has an enormous impact on the lives of care workers, but also on residents. And when you look more closely to our goals, it's really focused on creating data and insights, but also sharing best practices, because we're searching for inspiration. And it's quite unique that we have a multi-stakeholder platform where we combine both the perspectives of operators, investors, but also stakeholders like governments and banks. And I'm really proud to state that we are the most impactful association of Europe, and maybe even becoming impact on a global scale. Because when you look at our group of industry leaders, these are really the thought leaders. They have an enormous track record, and when you compare, for example, the assets under management, but also deal flow on yearly basis, we are the biggest. And it's really great to see that our geographical spread is going bigger and bigger, to the Nordics, we're looking to the CEE, but also Mediterranean countries, and even we do have requests beyond Europe. So that's really the next step for this great association. And I think most importantly is the impact side of our association, because our industry leaders are really driven to make impact on ESG, and then especially the S of social, because we're trying to improve people's lives. So both the residents, but also the care workers, we have a great working environment. In regard to the marketing, but especially the reporting, I'm really proud to tell that I think we're creating a great content, both online, but also in the Real Asset Insight magazine. And please follow us on LinkedIn. And I think one of the strengths of this association that it's really demand driven. So we did a survey both on the member side, but also on LinkedIn in general, to ask, okay, which topic is really top of mind? And that's where the output was, well, we would like to have some insights on emerging markets, because we have a lot of question marks. And therefore, Martin, I would like to introduce you as an associate professor, and also to elaborate on the different perspectives of emerging markets.
Thank you. So I would like to talk about a little bit the perspective of the emerging markets, because this is a key issue of this session. So when we are talking about the emerging markets, first what we have to discuss what the growth, okay, because in many aspects the growth is the key when we are talking about emerging markets. So three issues: the aging demographic, the supply and demand ratio, the outdated stock renewal investments per GDP. It's also very interesting. Of course, without question, Europe is aging compared to other part of the world, but I would like to highlight that dominantly the CEE countries are in the top 10. So it's quite interesting. Demographic supply-demand imbalance we have in the healthcare structure. So now the stakeholders facing with rapidly decreasing population, with low fertility ratio and extremely fast aging, what means the elderly will become older. Of course, this situation requires more health and medical care and services. And from an investment perspective, at the regional level, the health and social investment dynamics is rapidly growing along with the pensions and incomes. So I think it sounds great. Of course, sector-wise, before the pandemic, the state governments and the corporate investments, mainly in the infrastructure, overall has been less than EU average, but it seems changing very fast due to the not applicable pandemic processes. So overall, I think it could be a good time and a good entry point in the healthcare market in the CEE region, of course, in the near future. Secondly, when we talk about the emerging market, the geographical spread diversification is very important. Recently, in the strategy and the competitiveness, the CE region underperformed the EU average, of course, in the vast majority of cases, but it was mainly in the last decade. With exceptions, mainly in the value of human capital, we look forward to welcome the most sustainable and unique projects. And just to make sure, I'm not talking about the care industry, but the research and development of senior care tools, equipments, and medicines. In our region, these lovely young entrepreneurs and startups competing not within the EU only, but in the Canadian and the Japan market as well, where the aging is also generates challenges to the whole society. After that brief introduction, I would like to share a very interesting result of our poll, what we put it on the LinkedIn, and we shared it among our friends, colleagues, and expertise, and we can see the result that investable market should be dominantly the CEE, the Mediterranean countries, and of course the Baltics as well. Regarding this result, I organized a very interesting roadshow in Hungary, and I would like to share those results with you. I think in each country, including of course Hungary, the politics has a huge weight on this industry because only just a minor private sector is existing and the demand is huge. The waiting list to get into the care homes or nursing homes usually 5 or 6 years. And you know, it's very hard time for the families and even for the supplies as well. Also, new specialized care homes opening on the market, for example, dementia and Alzheimer. So this is a brand new, and we went in these facilities, we experienced their wonderful services, and really it's a really good thing that this is like that the way that we can strengthen. Of course, now when we are talking about the senior housing, because we have to talk about a little bit market highlight, market research, that the private sector is focusing on the bigger cities like capital cities, Budapest, or different country cities like Eger, Miskolc. So these are the target areas for the investors. Of course, in the countryside, because when we want to compare the CE countries to each other, it's almost the same ratio. 20% lives in the capitals, 80% lives in the countryside. So the countryside, it's a huge market. We had a very nice meeting with one of the largest hospital developer, and they are developing 20 new hospitals in the countrysides. So I think it's something new, something good start. So this is one side, but we have to talk about the other side, what we are weak, let's call it, because this CE region it's also weak in the senior care business. This is the education. The expectation of the care workers that the future path is not very good, especially after the COVID-19. The turbulence is huge in the whole healthcare sector, but also the there is a slightly change what we see from the regulation, from the national regulation side. That means that now this is the time when they try to make a difference between the care worker and the medical staff. Before they handle it together, so that was also a kind of problem. But when we are talking about the care workers, they are lack of knowledge and they really need good experiences. These experiences can be taught from the Western countries. So in my mind, I really hope that that the new international players can come to this region, to this market, and they can set up a brand new standards, good practices, because this would be the key for the next 10 or 15 years. And of course, we have to highlight the impact of the SHHA, who can provide these knowledge transfers, because this is also the key for the CE. So I would like to give back the floor to Ron.
So great, Martin. Thanks for sharing your insight and also your enthusiasm, because the roadshow in your country was great. Also to meet all the leading domestic players, to meet the governmental parties, and I think it's really on top of each mind actually. So aging demographics is really a key topic. Maybe the final part, because in terms of emerging markets, I think next to growth and geographical spread, I think we also see a few sub-asset classes. So next to senior living and nursing homes, we do see, for example, specialized medical office buildings or short stay facilities, and I think it's really driven by consumer behavior. I think both development companies but also operators are really keen to jump on it because it's a real opportunity. For example, we see new concepts with senior expats, for example, in these Mediterranean countries, and I think from the investor perspective, we see a lot of appetite really focused on impact investing, and then especially ESG, so not only environmental, but also try to make an impact on the social side, for example, with state-of-the-art nursing home facilities where it's also great to work in. And I think this care workers home perspective is maybe even more importantly than the bricks. So, and that's really, I think, one of the drivers of this beautiful association to make people's life better, to improve quality of life, both of the residents, but also the care workers' perspective. So yeah, I think it's really a great bridge to the expert panel. So on one hand, thank you for your time. Please join our association and journey. Richard, the floor is yours. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Ron and Martin there for a really interesting presentation. I'm delighted to be hosting a super panel here. Thanks very much for joining us. For those who haven't been on the RealX site before, it means that you can connect with one another, you can ask questions. So do please put any comments in the comments side or questions in the Q&A. I know that Ron will also be in the Q&A and the chat there, so that we can keep you updated on anything. And obviously any questions that you put in, we will definitely try and answer those. That's the joy of this being live. Thanks also to Ron and Sylvia for coordinating and arranging this for the SHHA. I'm delighted to have such a fantastic panel. So we've got Charles-Antoine van Aelst, who's Chief Investment Officer at Edifica. We've got Errol Riese, who's Managing Director for Mithra Capital Advisors. We've got Laura de Witt, who's CEO, President of the Board and founder of the Miller White Group. Krzysztof JACUNSKI, who's the CEO and President Board and founder of Origin Polska. Thibault Sartini, who's CEO of the new cluster New Countries for Orpea. And last, and obviously you've already met Martin Zanowski, who's the project leader for Matra Resort Senior Living, amongst many other things. Let's just start with some quick introductions. Maybe just starting with you, Charles-Antoine, just a brief introduction of yourself and the company for those who may not know.
Yes, thank you, and good morning to you all. Well, as you mentioned, I'm Charles-Antoine. I'm Chief Investment Officer at Edifica. I've been with Edifica for 13 years now, so I've seen the evolution in the European markets. And brief word on Edifica. So, as you probably know, we are Brussels-based, specialized healthcare real estate REIT. So active today in 7 countries in Europe, but looking at other countries as well. And we have a portfolio of assets in operations now, 4.5 billion euros, and a development pipeline of about 800 million euros that will come on top of that.
Great, thanks very much. Thibault, let's come to you. Just an introduction of yourself and Orpea.
Yes, I'm Thibault Sartini. I'm the CEO of the cluster country in Orpea. Orpea decided 2 years ago to organize the company with a different region in the world, because we are now in 25 countries around the world, and Orpea is the leader in the world for to take care of the people with a rehabilitation center, psychiatric center, and nursing home, and we are developing home care and senior housing now. And I'm managing different countries as Poland, Baltic country, and Asia region, and Italy. And we are looking for other countries, obviously. And I'm managing I'm in company since 28.
Great, thanks, Thibault. Really interesting to get that sort of global view as well. I think great to get that perspective. Christoph, a quick introduction from you.
I had a company called Origin Polska, and Origin Polska is a sister company to Canadian company called Origin Way. Origin Way operates obviously in Canada, and operates several senior housing facilities. It is so when we decided to move to Poland, we wanted to repeat the same model as Canadian model. But after initial market research, I changed our goals, and we started with rehabilitation and memory care services. And we built 2 facilities. One is where I'm right now, and it is a rehabilitation facility, mostly 126 beds. And one wing is dedicated to memory care. We care for Alzheimer patients. The second facility was built in Kraków, and it is strictly rehabilitation facility. And now we are building a very large complex in North Poland, which will host not only rehabilitation facility, but also our first, what we call senior apartments revital, or apartments revital, which is a concept for almost independent seniors to live in one community. And we have also additional buildings in this complex dedicated to people who would like to come for our revital programs. Now we are ready to start moving very quickly with our independent living or semi-independent living communities. Each will be accompanied by a revital center. And we now are focusing also on nursing homes, which we push a little bit in time, because we wanted to get as much experience as possible, but also have a good medical and rehabilitation base. So I am here in Poland now for 8 years, and hope that we will expedite our growth very quickly now.
Great, really good to get that perspective from Poland as well, Christoph. Laura, quick introduction from you.
Good morning, my name is Laura de Wit. I am originally from Holland, where I studied law, and I came to Switzerland, where I'm based with my company Miller White Group since 2006. I've worked throughout Europe, and I saw that the market was changing rapidly. So I've used that expertise here in Switzerland, and we are mainly now focusing on temporary and permanent housing for students, seniors and business residences, but the concept is the same. we just adjust it to the clients. And we do this here in Switzerland as well as in Holland. And we've been looking into the Caribbean and Suriname, which are ex-Dutch enclaves where we can enter the market quite easily because the legislation is the same. So yeah, I'm very proud and happy to be here, and I hope I can be of your assistance.
Great, thanks very much, Laura. Errol, a word of introduction from you, please.
Morning, everybody. My background is in banking and finance, working with investment banks in the City of London, and principally arranging financing for the public and private sectors. Since 2008, when I left the full-time banking career, I have been a consultant, and we focused principally on aging and the environment. On aging, we looked at retirement living and rehabilitation. And of course, we have focused on countries where we feel that there is an opportunity to offer the seniors who want a lifestyle retirement an opportunity to enjoy the sun, sea, and the amenities which can be offered in the Mediterranean. Had looked at in the past in Poland for rehab and in the UK for senior living. Principally now it's Greece and Cyprus.
Perfect, thanks very much. And last but very much not least, Martin, just a brief introduction from yourself.
Very good morning. Thanks, Richard, having me here in this great, wonderful expert panel. My name is Martin Czarnowski. I am working as an associate professor and an independent researcher in the CE region, Hungary, Poland, and even Cyprus. What we do usually, we try to find the best practices all over the world, even in the US and Canada as well, and we try to imply here in our region. In our Matra Resort Senior Living, we focus on active seniors, providing medical services, and also we have a program in early dementia stage, and also for a very popular aging well or healthy aging.
Super, thanks very much. So again, if you've got questions, please do put those in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure we pick them up. Really interesting to get all of your perspectives, I think, just in terms of some of these topics. It would be good maybe just to start with you, Charles-Antoine, because emerging markets, obviously, from a real estate perspective, often means, you know, one thing, but maybe it's different in terms of particularly the senior living and healthcare markets. I suppose, from your point of view there at Edifica, how do you define an emerging market from your view?
Well, in our point of view, what we're always looking at when looking at new markets are basically three things. Demographics, so aging, that's a quite clear item in Europe, and also the consolidation of the market in terms of operators, because if there are no concepts, no operators in the market, it's also very difficult to start investing in healthcare real estate, because it's a very specific type of real estate and it's operator driven. So that's an important item. And then also we try to analyze how the system is being financed, because in a lot of countries the system is depending on some form of state financing to sustain and to support the care that's being offered by operators in their homes. So that's what we try to have a good look at, and to see how we can find our way and find the right partners to team up with and develop a new country.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
If I may just just to make a remark from my experience, because some of the investors, they are not familiar, you know, this Central and Eastern European region is very fragmented. If we are talking about regions, we can highlight three different regions. It's a Baltic countries, Central Europe, Southeastern Europe, which includes the Balkan. And, you know, total includes almost 300 million people. So the market size it's huge, but also there are 20 different countries and almost 20 different languages. So it's very interesting. Thanks.
No, that's great. And from your point of view, Laura, you mentioned that you're there in Switzerland. Let's just start from that point of view, which I think Switzerland, most people would regard very much as a mature market in that sense. So maybe just highlight what the position is there in Switzerland.
Well, like most people know, the standard of living in Switzerland is extremely high. So a lot of expats actually come and retire here, and they pay a fortune staying in 4- and 5-star senior residence places. But what we see here more is that it's not really taking care of sick and elderly people, because people stay quite fit here already, and people with higher incomes normally do take better care of themselves, have access to better medical services, eat healthier, and have a very different kind of lifestyle than in, for example, emerging markets. So what we see here is that we focus very much on very luxurious lifestyles with sports activities. The locations are often not very accessible in a way that they have to be in the middle city centers. We are often in the mountains. We are by the lakes. The locations are occupied not only by people that are alone or sick or need care in that way, but also for people that want just full service and a one-stop shop for everything. So they have the spas that are in there. They have, like I said, medical care 24/7, but also 5-star restaurant services. So it's a very different kind of lifestyle and a very different kind of service that we offer here in our senior residences than in most of the world. And that is also why people from America and people from the rest of Europe often come here to retire and stay in our homes.
And Errol, just coming to you, from your experience looking at different markets, I mean, how do you see those comparisons between the more mature markets and I suppose the emerging markets?
Well, there are two types of, shall we say, senior living, I would call it, okay? In the more mature markets of the US and the UK, the distinction is between those who are well off and can enjoy a lifestyle retirement in Florida and the senior living of the middle classes, which is sometimes not for profit, funnily enough, in the US, okay? In the UK, it has really evolved from care homes to later living, to senior living, and to the very upmarket stuff we see now, like Riverstone in Kensington, okay? Just to let you know, the minimum price in Kensington is £1 million. So obviously you see a huge range in the mature markets, okay? Now, emerging markets like perhaps the Mediterranean or I cannot speak for Eastern Europe, but for the Mediterranean, the offering, if you like, is for those people who want to either retire or spend a substantial time of their life, their senior life, near the beach or the sea, sunshine, outdoor sports, and they have these amenity mix at an affordable price, you see. This has become even more important post-COVID, because what we see in mature markets is that the people are leaving the densely populated area, the big cities, and they're buying properties outside the cities, okay? They want outdoor space. They don't want to be confined to flats. And lo and behold, if we have another lockdown, people who experienced the lockdown in London like I did, we were just so happy to have the chance to go for a walk in the park when they allowed us. So you can imagine the emerging markets or the Mediterranean countries offer this ability to seniors to enjoy, even in a lockdown, the outdoor space and the sunshine, and that builds their resilience of their health. And this is going to become more important. Watch this space.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Christoph, to pick up on that CEE side as well. But Thibault, I just wanted to come to you. I mean, we've heard there of the sort of range of I guess, different kind of service levels expected in different markets. I mean, as an operator, is that a major challenge to adapt significantly in terms of, in terms of the type of care required, or building design to suit these what appear to be very different markets?
Obviously, that's the basis. Our job is not to build building. We are primarily here to provide quality care, and this quality of care requires also training for the people that we hire. We have to train, adaptation to the culture of the country, because all the country have not the same culture, the same habits for the life, and to take care of the whole people, if I may. An excellent knowledge of the market and its needs, it's important, because when we have all these elements, we have to conduct a reflection about the design of the building. Not first, we can't go with the same building all around the world. It's impossible. We have to adapt it of the needs that the people have. And all around this, we have to project the project of the life of the facility, and we have to combine it with the architecture building.
And in terms of the services that you offer, Thibault, are they consistent across Europe? I mean, you mentioned there that quality of care was the key. How do you deliver that across different, because you're obviously looking at some of the newer markets. Is that something that is, a must-have in terms of au pair, and is that difficult to achieve that same care, because is the market used to it, I suppose?
We have a basis in our pair. We have the knowledge of how to take care of the people, but this basis has to be adapted by the regional culture and by the habits of the people, and we have to work on it. We are going on the new countries with our knowledge, with our process, but we have the flexibility to adapt it of the countries that we are, and we have the training for all the people, but sometimes we can have a new law, a new regulation, and we have to adapt on it. That's how experience can help on it.
Okay,
if I can just add, Richard, can I just add, although I'm not an expert in care, I think that what we are looking at trends increasingly is not just safety measures, which are becoming very important after COVID, because we saw a lot of care homes had very high death rates in Western Europe. The introduction of technology, which is becoming increasingly so important in care, especially consumer wearables, where now some companies are providing amazing technology to monitor the seniors, to monitor their health, even if they fall, where they are. So technology is going to really enhance the product offering of firms like Orpea, and I think probably maybe you can confirm that, Thibault.
Yes, of course, but the most important is that we have technology, but we have to use this technology very well. We can't have only technology without the people. We are working people with people. That's the most important for us. Sure. We have to train the people, because on the different countries, we don't have the same level of the training. And our goal is to train the people to be sure that the quality is respected and our process are good, but because the basis of the quality of care is to take care of the people, and we can have all the technologies that we need, but we have to use it very well. We can't have technology without people, and we can't have people without technology. We have to have a right mix to use a good technology in the right way, in the right moment, to take care of the people. But the most important is the people who are working with us to take care of the people.
Yeah,
I would like to also add a short comment to Errol and Thibault, because both of them, they mentioned very, very important for all the stakeholders. So if we want to talk about a little bit of cultural diversification, we have to state that, for example, the Northern European countries and the Southern European countries, they have a little bit different care model, because in the Southern countries, the family is much more important instead of the northern countries where the services, the available quality services. So from that point of view, Errol has a right, because after the COVID-19 or during the COVID-19, many elderly people, they just bought a second home or holiday home or whatever. But now, especially in our region, the Central and Eastern European region, they are desperately looking for available medical and care services, because at the moment it's not really exist. So I think this is very important to highlight. Thank you.
Yeah, I have something to add quickly as well. Two things that we have noticed in our market is, one is the training of our personnel, of course, is very important. And Switzerland is a country with 4 languages, so this is quite complicated. And English is not a spoken language or a taught language as first here in school for nurses and even doctors sometimes. So this is something that, why we are looking to also obtain personnel from around the world to come to Switzerland, and we have issues with work permits and so on and so forth. That's number one. And a funny, interesting technology knowledge point for our senior residences was that we also do the student residences and the business residences, and number one demand was always the Wi-Fi connection, whereas in the senior residences this was not so much of an issue. And since COVID, and since parents and their children are now also connecting through the technology that is available for students in business residences, we have seen that this became one of our problems and issues that we had to solve very quickly when everybody started using Teams and Zooms and so on and so forth to stay in connection with their parents. So I see the concept is changing very rapidly due to COVID, and we have a little bit more of the same demands for all our basically lifestyles now, not only old, not only young. We all need the same technology, and we need to teach the elderly, as well as already my generation, to be able to fulfill those needs. So that's interesting for us too.
Great. I just wanted to come to you. Oh, Christoph, go ahead. I was just going to come to you. So
I would like to ask you, maybe we should look at one or two issues which, in my opinion, have changed the market in terms of senior care and rehabilitation. First is almost bankruptcy, I would say, of public healthcare. And I can see it in Canada, compare it to when I moved to Canada almost over 35 years ago. It was completely different public medical services. And I can see it in countries like Poland, which never had a good public health system, and currently with aging population, it is even less accessible and not of good quality. So and on top of this, we had COVID, which changed a model completely. And let me explain what I want to convey. When you say private healthcare or private services, it really doesn't matter whether you look at, in my opinion, of Switzerland or Nordic countries or Poland, because the lack of good services from public service is forcing people to look for different options. And I can see it with our rehabilitation that people are desperately looking for good quality rehabilitation because they cannot find it from the public sector. So it opens the market for us because of the need of the population, regardless of their ability to pay. And that's why there is a number of foundations who help people without ability to pay to actually cover expenses of rehabilitation. So that's one issue. In terms of elderly, there is a factor which is very important and which you mentioned before, is a health condition of people in various countries. And on a separate monitor, I have a presentation which shows what is the level of good health in seniors for over 35 years old in all European EU countries. And you can see that, for example, Poland, Estonia, Hungary, Czech Republic, Italy are on the bottom of the spectrum, which again increases demand for nursing homes and for rehabilitation, which actually is pushing private investors into this direction, because they can see that there is a large population of all age which requires some form of assistance. Then on top of this is COVID. What COVID changed is understanding that family-based care is not only a matter of culture, because yes, somebody mentioned here that in Italy it is a little bit different than in Nordic countries. Today it is a problem everywhere, because what we observed during COVID is that family couldn't communicate the way they communicated before. And in a country like Poland, when about 4 million Poles are emigrated to work in other countries, leaving their parents behind. So what it means two things. First of all, suddenly nobody could take proper care of elderly, even people who were not so very much disabled. Nobody could help them because of restrictions of COVID. And families living abroad or even in different cities had a problem how to help them. So suddenly what I observed is a push for independent senior living, because people say, okay, I am elderly, I am in many ways independent, but in a situation like COVID, I was left absolutely alone. Now I want to live in a community where there are people of my age. We can help each other, we can live together, but also there is somebody, like in my case, our company Origin, which has professionals who can come and help if it is needed. So in my opinion, market shifted in last few years, especially last year, dynamically, because, as I said, public healthcare is not efficient anymore in most of the countries, and it is going to be worse, not better. And secondly, people start thinking differently about the way they live. And technology, as you mentioned here, plays enormous role. I am almost done. I will just tell you one thing. Here in the place where I am now in Otwock near Warsaw, in our first facility, we have the most advanced in Poland robotics technology used for rehabilitation. And technology, yes, absolutely fantastic. But there is a second thing, which is a problem everywhere. People in rehabilitation, especially in dementia care, without people, without well-trained people, you will do nothing. So the problem is, and we can see it everywhere. I can see it in Canada, I can see it in other countries, I can see it even in Poland. The access to well-trained people who are a base of our business is getting harder and harder. We opened our own school called Origin Academy to train people because the training which they were getting from other sources were not sufficient. So I think that this panel is fantastic because we can share it, but I think that we could look and forget about old models and look at new models, because the world is changing extremely fast and we have to adapt.
I would like to add a quick remark because Christoph has a right. In the last 10 years as a pro bono and as a university teacher, I did so many teachings at third age universities for elderly people. And usually there were top 3 topics. The first one, internet usage, second one, travel, and the third one is healthcare. And of course, with the teaching, we did several researches just on the spot. And we always ask the elderly that, okay, that if you want to make a difference between the healthcare services, how you make the difference. And they, you know, the question was very easy, that is it free or do I have to pay for it? And, you know, we have to add that something extra, that, okay, for what is the worth of your money? I mean, if you pay for it, you will get a valuable service. Would you take it? And definitely they say yes. That means they have a very, very much disposable income. And also one thing, when we are talking about senior living, usually in the Central and Eastern European region, there is not a real history, because in our region we have a late nursing or late care homes, so this is much more different when you are active and you want to join a community. So it's also very important that we need very good practices, what Christoph also mentioned. Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to come to you, Charles-Antoine, and there's a couple of questions in the chat, and I'll come to those in a minute. Thanks for giving those, and do keep those coming. We were talking there about trends and some of the changes that people have seen that have been highlighted there. I guess from your point of view, Charles-Antoine, have you seen you know, major changes that are beginning to change your strategy going forward, or is this a continuing momentum? What's your sense of that? And also it'd be interesting just to pick up on the demand side. What you're seeing, you know, is there significant demand in the more emerging markets as well as the sort of mature markets? Where are you seeing demand? It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think the market is in constant evolution, and also the demands. I think we were talking. I think Christoph mentioned the old model and the new model, but the elderly that were 80 years old 20 years ago don't have the same demands as the ones of today and the ones of the future. So you need to be evolving, and in that respect, you need to have flexibility in your concept, but then again also in your buildings, things like that. But I think also about old models and new models. We also need to make a distinction between what we then call independent living and what we call more assisted living. Because we talk quite a lot about residents wanting to go to communities, so they don't want to feel lonely, because loneliness is a big problem. But we still see that there's still a big demand and big need for also high care dependent residents, and that will also not disappear in the future. So these are really two different segments of the markets which are present and will probably remain present in the future. And it's probably in the independent living market that we've seen a lot of movement over the last 10 years, with also a lot of, well, not only operators, but also a lot of developers seeing the chances in that sector, which is actually something more in between the normal residential sector and the care real estate sector.
Can I just add, Richard, something what Charles said? Because actually, I have been involved in originating and financing projects 14 years ago. The first type or model we looked at were the continued care retirement communities in the United States. Now, those, we have US consultants who basically brought us the continuum of care, which was independent living for seniors, in Florida, assisted living, and nursing home. The problem now is that those wealthy seniors do not want to be living near people who have nursing needs. In other words, Alzheimer's and dementia. So the independent and assisted living can coexist, okay? Because a senior of 60 today is probably like 40 or maybe just slightly older of 20 years ago. Is fit, healthy, wealthy, and plays tennis, golf, swims. So basically, a 60-year-old wants an independent life and wants to be probably in a resort style of living, not just a flat, okay? That is key, in my opinion, and we see that in the Mediterranean. They want to be living near the beach, tennis courts, golf, and swimming pools, and enjoying their senior life. However, you may include assisted living, because the two are not mutually exclusive, in the sense that if something happens to them, they may want some minimum care, and they want to move from a bungalow type of residence to a flat. So this is the way I see the evolution going forward of independent living with some assisted living. But I cannot see under the same roof nursing homes. Those are completely different.
If I may comment, I agree with you 95%, and 5%.
Very good.
Okay, so we are almost on the same page. I give you one example. In one of our facilities in Canada, in Canmore, we have very elegant building with independent living and a wing which is dedicated for dementia patients. Why it is in the same building? Because a number of couples who moved to the facility, at least one of the couple was diagnosed with Alzheimer in a very early stage. So the other knew that sooner or later she or he will not be able to fully take care of the other, and that's why we combine it in a way which it is not very visible. Let's say it is not very disturbing. But if a couple, if the husband with advanced Alzheimer and his wife would like to dine with husband, we will arrange it. So they continue live together, but not really together. So that's one thing. Another thing is that when you mention about people who are my age or which would be considered 20 years ago as elderly, I don't consider myself elderly, because as you mentioned, I play tennis, I bike, I do all sports, everything. So the same is with my age group, a little bit older, a little bit younger. And yes, they would never like to live next door to nursing home. But at the same time, what I hear is they are concerned that if anything happens, they would like to have immediate assistance, because they know that the public sector, health sector, is inefficient, will not come to help efficiently enough or quickly enough, and later on, if rehabilitation is required, then what to do. So I will give you an example, and let's meet in 2 years and talk again about it. But we are building a complex in North Poland, which has a very large rehabilitation center. And rehabilitation center in our model is dedicated mostly to people with very serious neurological or orthopedic problems. So next to this center is a building which is independent living, connected to the center, because one floor of the center is what we call Revital. Revital is a program when people like you and me would like to have aqua fitness and yoga classes and stretching and all this stuff, because people understand today that the only way to survive in the market in the market where public health is not as great as we would expect is to take care of ourselves.
Christoph, you're absolutely right. That's why we add wellness. We add wellness, which is what you're suggesting here.
Yeah,
I would like to.
But this wellness has to be wellness for seniors or
Yes.
Wellness for people over 40 or 50.
Seniors.
Because wellness in terms of health clubs for younger is not something we appreciate anymore. Okay. Sorry?
I just want to give you this. I fully agree with Errol and Christoph, and I think we have to speak about what the people needs in this type of resort, if I can make to tell about it. But we have to be open on the life outdoor. We can't close the door for the facility, for the senior, for the assisted living, or for the nursing home. We can combine it. We can have a special unit dedicated to the people. I fully agree if we can let the people all together, the couple, as if one of two of us is with Alzheimer's pathology, he can go on the what can I say, the daycare to take care of the people, and for the night come with the wife and everything, and we can organize it, and we can maintain the life, and we can have a good condition. And during this time, the people can go on the adapted activity. It could be aqua fitness, golf, and everything that you have explained first. But I think we have to be open on the city to let the people come to see and to have a life in our facility. It's very better that to close the door and to let the people all together are closed. It's not good. We have to open to let the people, as I saw in Switzerland, the people can come on the restaurant to eat. The people who are working in the, I don't know, company, they can go here, eat, and we have a life. We have an exchange, international exchange. It's very interesting for the people because the life, it's not closed.
Yeah,
They can ask you to go.
and one thing, what is very interesting, what you see here, we all want to become very old, but nobody wants to be really old. And as soon as old is equal to unhealthy or ill, we seem to be hiding people away, and that's actually quite worrying. And I think there is still a lot that can be done in this way, where we should definitely come back to this. I think this is an interesting conversation for us all involved in this market.
I'd like to pick up a little bit on the sort of impact.
Can I add on to the same question? Because usually, you know, as an academic, I'm talking about theoretical things, but I have to highlight practical things, what you are talking about. So the two major challenges when we are talking about, and even from the investor and operational side, where is the fine line between the independent living and assisted living? Okay, let's go back to the measure issue. So, for example, from investor point of view, do I have to build a mixed-use type facility? Because if I recruit patients for the next 20 years who will become more dementia patients, we cannot predict. This is one issue, and of course, the early dementia stage, the family always take care about the family member. But in a second or the third phase, is it not true? The family doesn't want to take over. So this is very important, again, from the investor and operational side. And the operational side is very, very important. Where do we get the knowledge? Is there any center of excellence exist already somewhere that, okay, how can I train our staff, our social workers to say, okay, this is a second stage or early stage, maybe I can gain some time. For example, in our Pioneer Macro Resort project, we are doing training for the early stage dementia. That means that the situation could be not better, but we can hold the same situation, or we can extend 1 or 2 years. So it's also, from business point of view, it's very interesting questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Thibault, I just wanted to come to you a little bit also about, because there's been a lot of discussion here around the types of services that are needed, and I guess the range of people that are now beginning to come into this, because you've got the active seniors, and a mental note to self, must take up a lot more sports before I get to 60, obviously, by the sounds of it. But have you seen a change in terms of the types of people who are coming into your services, Thibault?
Yeah, yes, the profile of the resident is changing now. Before, as I remember, if Christophe explained it, we had some people as autonomous people, and they go in our facility. In 94, it was 82 years old to come in nursing home. They were autonomous. They are finding a community life to have exchange with people on the same age. But now that we are seeing is the people are going in our facility more than 89 years old, because they are at home, and they need to be at home because the family sometimes doesn't want to let the people in the nursing home. I don't know why, but due to reputation, because we have to sustain a cost and everything. But now we are seeing that the people who are arriving are more with dependence, with pathology, with Alzheimer, and they need some help, and they can't be at home. That's the reason why they are arriving in our facility. But I think the market is changing now. As we spoke first, it was with the senior housing, it could be a good solution, intermediary solution for the people who are not totally with high pathology and level of dependence, but they can be here, and after going to the nursing home is changing and become more medicalized.
No, that's interesting. And I know you've got to leave in around 10 minutes, so I may focus a little bit more on you, Thibault, in the next 10 minutes. But I just wanted to pick up one question that had come in from the chat for you, Charles-Antoine, which is, I suppose, in terms of, if we're looking at locations, what is it that I suppose you're looking for in emerging markets? Are there particular drivers, whether that's aging demographics, obviously, but what are important for you in terms of entering new countries? And also the question that came in was, what are the barriers that you see that might make you delay or postpone that entry into the country?
I think when we want to enter a new country, we want also to well, as I mentioned, we make our analysis, and we want to make sure there is enough potential in that market to establish ourselves as a local player. And in order to have that, we need to find the right partners to do that. So we are a real estate investor, so we need to find the operating partners to do that. So that needs to be present. That's number one. And I think also we need to believe in the concepts, that the concepts are future-proof, and on the other hand, that they are also affordable for the local population. So we've looked at some countries in the past where the market was extremely young and only focusing on the top top 3% wealthy population, because that's the only slice of the population that could afford certain types of residences. Well, that wasn't the market where we saw ourselves grow on the short term. So I think it's a combination of those items that make it happen for us.
Charles, can I ask a question, Richard? Charles, is there a mix of local and foreign demand that you would look at? Because in the Mediterranean, you know, we are blessed with the sunshine, the sea, outdoor life for most of the year. So the locals would move there because they live in huge dwellings and they have a domestic assistant from the Philippines or Sri Lanka. It's the foreigners who buy, and they have it as a second home principally because they want to spend 6 months of the year maybe in the sunshine. Would that be something you would look at if there was a robust sort of feasibility study? Because ultimately you're real estate investors. Okay.
Yes, I know, but the answer is double. I think probably not in a first instance, because when we look at, for instance, Southern European countries, we want to try to develop ourselves in the local market with local residents. And also, if you look at our portfolio, we are much more focused on the buildings for high care dependent residents, not so much independent living facilities. Or the resorts that you mentioned, and we see that, or we tend to see until now, that in those resorts where indeed a lot of people from Northern Europe travel to the south of Europe to have a nice living next to the beach in the sun, when they really are or become care dependent, they tend to travel back to their families and go back to the care homes in their own country. So we want to, if we invest, for instance, in Spain or in Italy, we want to make sure we believe in the concepts for the local population. And maybe once we are established, we can also have a second look at those type of residents for expats, as you call them, I think.
And also, I would like to ask just a quick remarks that also in the European Union, I mean, support the startups and young entrepreneurs to look after, you know, the independent living tools solutions, because it's much more cheaper. I mean, less cost and it's cheaper maintenance. Thanks.
Great. I mean, Dagmara, thanks very much for your question. I'm going to come to that in a minute, but because we've got a limited amount of time with Thibault here, I just wanted to pick up one thing that, which is obviously ESG, social impact, CSR, those kinds of elements have really come to the fore over the last 18 months, Thibault. And I know they're a key part of ORPEA, but has that changed? Is that being driven more? And do you, I suppose, see some of this move into the more emerging markets as part of an impact strategy as well? Just interesting to get your sense of that.
For ORPEA, CSR is native because we are in this process in the beginning. Because we have to think about the people, about the building, about the economy of energy, of whatever we can put it, because we have the big facility, big building. We have to take care of the consumption of energy, of everything. You have to take care of the people, because if we are not taking care of our employees, they can't take care of the people. It's the basis for us to do it. And now it's not a revolution. We are adapting the new building to the rules, and we fix a roadmap in ORPEA to be sure that we respect, with goals, with KPI, to follow, to monitor, to fix some goals on different countries, to be sure that we are on the right way in the different countries where we are, because we have common goals for the company, and we define the goals in local goals to be sure that all business units are going the same way.
May I ask a question from Thibault?
Yes, of course.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, in my point of view, that I see for investors' side, there are endless opportunities in the Central and Eastern Europe, but from the operational side, you know, Laura mentioned that they are recruiting staff from all over the world. So that means that you as Orpea, do you see that is there any need, for example, as I mentioned before, the center of excellence? I mean, just getting the same standards, the same knowledge in each countries in Europe. What is your opinion about that? Thanks.
We are thinking about to create some school, some academy to train the people, because the most important today, as I explained since the beginning of this conference, is the people who are working with us. It's the most important for us. It's the first resources that we have in the company. We have to take care about them. We have to teach, to train, and now I think this is a problem for all the company all around the world. We have to have the right people and the competencies. And Orpea is investing in a nursing school, in school to train the people, to be sure that we are part about the training of the people. It's important not only to give know-how, but to train the people to have a title of the study, to be sure they have a good title, the right title to go to work on the market that we need. And we are trying to have academy, I don't know if I can say it like this, regional academy all around the world to train the people. It's important. It's easy to invest on the building, but once time that the building is built, what you have to do, we have to have operation, to take care of the people, and we have to have some people to take care of these people. And the most important is not to build a building, it's first to take care of the people, as that to train the people to take care of these people.
Richard,
it's very good to hear. Thanks.
Can I just build on what Thibault has said, because that's absolutely critical in the whole of Europe, especially as we hear in the UK these days. What we have done in Cyprus is, because this sector is of primary interest to the government, is we're talking to universities so that they introduce courses with regard to healthcare assistance or something like that. And I think that's absolutely important. It must not just be left to the private sector providers. It is the universities who have to look at aging as a problem faced in the whole of Europe, and as specialist carers to be trained correctly and have the practice, because what they can do is they can have the theory at universities and do a sandwich course as a practice at places like Orpea. To add though to the ESG which you mentioned, that is number one to us in terms of the green project. Our energy will be all from solar. We will recirculate the grey water. We will plant lots of trees. We're going to make, and even if we were to use the construction, we would use it as a passive house, which is a German model for keeping the temperature out of the dwellings. So it is absolutely important to place the focus on making these new facilities as green as possible.
I would like to just one comment to add that also we started with SHA, a new program. This is for secondary school and even universities, just to highlight the social, like a social work, not the social care within the family. I think it's very important. Thank you.
I just to add something about the green energy in the building. In Orpea, for example, we have it and we are working to optimize it, to have a new type of green building, for example, and it's more important. And we hope, we think that we have to invest on it, because it's very important for the future. Yes. And I think we can work now in the new nursing home model as the nursing home of the future, because I don't know if what Christophe explained it, we have an old model, and we have to work on the nursing home of the future as green energy, as the people who are working on it, as technology. And if we combine all this, all the concept, we are in the right way for all the people who are working in this sector.
Absolutely.
And for you in the sort of new areas, emerging markets, Thibault, how important is I guess the collaboration then with both the investors in terms of the buildings, but also the government, the local authorities? You know, how important is that for you being secure to move into those markets and really do what you do best there?
Oh, good question. First, to go on the markets, as I think Charles explained first, we have to know the market. We have to have a good market study to be sure the market is open, or if we don't have, I don't know, a concurrent or a colleague there that is operating. We have to see the authority to understand the needs, to understand the culture, to adapt the project of the needs of the people. Because, as I explained first, we can't arrive with the same buildings, the same facilities, the same process to implement in the new country or emerging market. It's impossible. We have to know perfectly the market. We have to be sure that the project is personalized for the country and sometimes for the region. Because, for example, in some countries, regional law, it's regional culture. For example, in Italy, but it's not an emerging market, but regional law, regional market, regional culture is different from north and south, and we have to adapt it. And it's more important to know the market and to speak with the, building investor for the authority to be sure that we are on the same way, where we understand perfectly the market and the needs to give a clear answer of these needs.
Great. I've got a quick question. I hope there's time for this for you, Thibault. It's from Agnita, which is great. For Thibault and Charles-Antoine, are you planning to refurbish some of your stock to meet net zero goals? So is that something where, because obviously there's a huge amount of older stock, so is that something that you're planning to refurbish? Is there a strategy around that?
Yes, certainly there is, because indeed we talk about ESG, and it's actually quite easy, as Thibault mentioned, to build new and shiny green buildings from scratch. But the big challenge is also to have a look at the old stock. There is a lot of old stock which is still okay from a operational perspective, or adaptable from an operational perspective, but we need to also look at the energy efficiency aspects there. And to give a good example there, between Orpea and Edifica, we have just closed a deal to refurbish and redevelop our oldest care homes in Belgium. So the ones that we acquired, let's say, together in 2005, 2006, and that were already back then 20 years old. So we're going to make them future-proof again, and invest quite a lot in that. Yeah, the big and important aspect of ESG for us.
The main issue for, I think, thank you, Charles, for this, is to have a good maintenance plan for all the facility and to invest. We can have a plan for 5 years and to be sure we can invest with a clear plan, with a clear audit of the building, to be sure that we are right. Because if we let the building as first, it doesn't work. We have to invest, we have to plan, and it's not that we have a new building, we have to let it for 5 years. It's impossible. Since the beginning, you have to have a plan to maintain the building on the high level. Or if you have an old building, to plan to invest on it, to refresh it, and to be sure that it is online compliant with your green politic.
Great, thank you, Thibault. And if you need to go, feel free. That's absolutely up to you. If there are other things coming in, we can always ask you those questions over the email later or something. So, but really great to have you as part of this really engaging conversation. So that's brilliant. I just wanted to pick up on one thing, which had come in as a question, which was around the difference between, I suppose, partly the difference between pensions in areas like Germany and Denmark and the Netherlands, which are significantly higher than those in the CEE. So this was from Jagmara, thanks for that. What are your thoughts on the influx of retirees from Western Europe and Scandinavia to emerging markets like Poland or Hungary, because the pensions are significantly higher? And will this activity, indicate a high level of investment profitability in the emerging markets? What's your sense of that? Does that create opportunities in these markets? I don't know. Is it something that people are seeing more of a movement from Western European retirees into some of these markets?
Richard, may I go first? Because I actually did work on a project like that.
Then that sounds very sensible, Errol.
About 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, we looked at a project in Poland, in the city of Wrocław. And for those of people who don't know the history of the area, it was an area where there were a lot of Germans who lived in the past, and after the Second World War, they were moved, if you like. So we identified the opportunity because the German model 10 years ago, don't look at the German model now. Germany 11 to 10 years ago had basically home care and institutional care. That's what they called it. Okay, so if you were not fit to be looking after yourself at home, you were moved to an institution. The care homes and the senior living came after. Okay, now the idea was that we would try to attract Germans who came from that region, okay, or knew the region, because in that part of Poland, in Western Poland, they speak German. They have excellent doctors and nurses who speak German. And we felt that with the stipend, in other words, the pension, they could live much more comfortable than living in Germany, okay? And we tried to do it as a PPP. And you could probably still look at it if the authorities now are more receptive to PPP, because it so happened that when I looked at all or visited 3 hospitals in Wrocław, all of them had the same problem. They had short stay beds and long stay patients. So basically what we looked at with, and Christoph will know the name, InterHealth Canada, we proposed with InterHealth Canada to develop such a thing because of the opportunity, and this is still there. There is what is called in the EU the trans-border infrastructure financing. So basically, what one can do is to raise funds as Poland and offer the services to Poles and to Germans who probably could benefit from rehabilitation and assisted living. And that's what we looked at, Christoph, about 11 years ago. Sadly, we could not get the municipality or the regional government to agree to a PPP because basically they had to take up 20 to 30%, and it's like a take or pay contract, okay? But that is still possible, probably, if the pension of Germans in Eastern Germany is not sufficient to live in Germany, but they could move to Poland across the border. Just to mention one more thing, in Szczecin, when we were talking to the mayor of Szczecin, he said to us basically that we are the second airport of Berlin, and maybe Christoph can say that as well. It is so closely connected, that region of Poland, that there is an opportunity, I think, in Poland.
I think, if I may, I think that a future for many European healthcare systems is to rely at least partially on cross-border services. And I give you 3 examples to be quick. When you mention about Silesia region and Wrocław, which used to be Breslau, I visited a place which we wanted to buy and expand, which was dedicated for German seniors. And actually, when I entered the building, I couldn't find a word written in Polish. Everything was in German. It was fully occupied by German seniors, for whom services which they received in this specific facility was of less than half price what they would have to pay in Germany. So yes, it is a big future, and yes, it is worth of looking into it, and we actually are very interested to move into the sector. Second example is what I saw in Holberg, which was before the war, co-object today. which is a city in North Poland on the Baltic seashore. And I visited this place in November. We also wanted to purchase a property there. And although it was almost winter, it was winter and very windy and not very high temperature. Again, 80% or 75% of all occupants were Germans. Seniors were coming for light rehabilitation and physiotherapy because of the price difference. Now, I give you last example, and not to bore you anymore. We had accidentally last year here in Oxford, we had a couple from Australia, and a lady had a stroke, and they didn't want to travel back to Australia, and she stayed with us for 2 months with her husband, and we were doing rehabilitation, very expensive rehabilitation. Now, when she sent a bill, medical bill, our bill to her insurer in Australia, first of all, he thought that it was a bill for a week, it was a bill for months. Secondly, we were laughing at it. The company was persuading them to stay longer. This is a huge opportunity for countries like Poland, and we are doing exactly that. We are building a level of quality which will be recognized everywhere in Europe. And the fact, if you walk outside of our building here and you look at plates of cars, you can see that people are coming from all over Poland. So demand for quality is everywhere, regardless of income. People want to have a better quality, and people are looking for better quality. And in terms of especially in terms of nursing care and rehabilitation, because it's extremely important how we can take care of these people.
I have a very short comment to the chat that this is a mistake if if you calculate on pension, because it's not about the pension in our region, more on a personal wealth, let's say, or personal or family wealth. And I have even the same question to Charles, that as Adifika, do you have a plan or long-term plan for this type of senior and elderly migration? Let me tell you one example. Even we say the Hungarian elderly, they have a low pension, but in fact, the wealthiest, they are in Austria in the top places. So it's not obvious. What is your opinion about that?
Well, it's a bit the same as for the migration to independent living facilities in the south of Europe. I think there is probably potential once you are in the market. But we will probably not be opening a new country to invest, for instance, only in the western part of Poland to take care of Germans in Poland. But there is probably a market for it in a segment of the market. But in contrast to that, when we talk to our operators, what we also always hear, because we ask a question where the residents are coming from usually, and the answer we always get is that they come from the local municipality because they've been living there forever, or they come from far away because their children are living there close to the care home. So these are still the two main sources of residents for a care home. So really traveling far away to get care, I completely understand it for rehabilitation, but I'm not so sure for very high care dependent people at the end of their life who want to be close to their family.
Thank you.
Add something. What we see here in Switzerland is we have had large immigration from Italy, Spain, and Portugal in the 60s and the 70s. These people built their lives here, they built their families here, and they paid their taxes here. Low, I know, but still they did pay. And now they're leaving Switzerland and they're going back to Italy, Portugal, and Spain to retire over there and to go into homes. But they're bringing their pension from Switzerland. So they have triple amounts of money to spend. So they're going into very high-end retirement homes and senior residence places where they can be enjoying the lifestyle of a Swiss resident, but doing it in their own countries. And the other thing that is very important to realize, and we had this actually happening privately with my grandfather, is that if you've lived abroad for 50 years and you spoke French or German in the country where you worked, and you're turning older, and you're turning much older, in the end he almost got to 98 years old, you don't speak French and German anymore, you go back to your mother tongue. And these are issues to address, and I see that why a lot of people, when they become older, they will go back to the countries where they originally come from. So that is a market to definitely not underestimate, I find.
Great. We're absolutely up against the end of our time here, I'm afraid, everybody. Been really fascinating discussion, and great to have so many views and so many different perspectives there. Thanks very much to everybody also for your questions. Really great to get those, and I've seen a lot of discussions going on in the chat there around the Centre of Excellence idea and all of those things. We'll certainly return to this topic again sooner than 2 years, probably significantly sooner than 2 years, because I think it's a really interesting growing market. And for those who are interested, particularly in the SHHA and this series of events, feel free to contact Sylvia, myself, Ron about that. But there will be a series of these events running focused on topics around senior living, senior housing, healthcare, all of those aspects. And so do look out for those, and we'll keep you updated on all of those. Thanks very much to all of the speakers. Thank you, Ron, for your great introduction as well. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you at the next of these SHHA briefings. Thanks very much. Oh, and finally, if anybody is at Expo Real, then there will be a breakfast meeting there for those interested in this sector, as well as a specific focus on European senior housing and healthcare markets. So do feel free to join us there if you're in person in Munich, or on the live stream, which we'll make available for those who are joining from the rest of the world. Thanks very much to everybody for joining us, and feel free to connect with one another on the RealX platform afterwards. Look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.